Shuttle bus services on the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge stepped up to meet weekend passenger demand. And in the French Pacific territory of New Caledonia, voters flocked to the polls for an independence referendum.
Good evening. Today is the second Sunday since the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge entered service. As at 4 p.m., Hong Kong authorities recorded more than 51,000 people crossing the bridge. Caleb Leung has our top story.
Departing tourists began showing up at the Hong Kong port area this afternoon to leave the territory via the mega bridge. Earlier today, government officials were on hand at the shuttle bus stop to take a first-hand look at the situation. Despite the queue of travelers, some of the shuttle buses left for Zhuhai before they were full. This may have to do with passengers hoping to get a window seat. The company that operates the shuttle buses has added an additional 18 vehicles to its fleet. It's also rented around 20 to 30 vehicles from cross-boundary coach operators to enhance weekend services. This move is in response to the long queues of travelers waiting for buses to cross the bridge last Sunday night. Operators of cross-boundary coach services departing from different parts of Hong Kong also stepped up their services in the afternoon and this evening. The situation seems to be better in Macau, with tourists saying they had to wait for around 10 minutes before boarding the shuttle buses. However, this tourist did note that the nighttime traffic load may be heavier than during the afternoon. Meanwhile, some Hong Kong residents may find their daily lives affected by the opening of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. In Tung Chung on Lantau Island, right outside a private housing estate, there were large crowds of people waiting for buses to go to the Hong Kong port. Lawmaker cum Island District Councillor Holden Chow said the crowds of tourists may cause a nuisance to area residents. He recommended relocating the bus stop to somewhere near the Ong Ping 360 cable car terminal, away from the residential area. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Well, researchers in Japan are sounding the warning on the H7N9 avian flu virus. But a local expert maintains the possibility of human-to-human transmission is low. Kana Chu has more.
Reaction was quick from Hong Kong health officials.
A lot of biosecurity measures and surveillance is already ongoing. We will continue to look into communicating with our international organizations, health organizations, to understand more about the development of avian flu, the risk.
But Ho Pak Leung, who heads the University of Hong Kong Center for Infection, said many international studies in the past 2 decades have, in fact, already shown that the avian flu virus is transmissible by droplets. While noting a potential threat to public health, he reiterated the risk of human-to-human transmission is low.
An accident involving more than 30 vehicles on an expressway in the northwestern province of Gansu on the mainland left 15 people dead and 44 others injured. Shortly after 7 o'clock last night, the driver of a heavy truck lost control of his vehicle. It happened near a toll gate on the Lanzhou-Haikou Expressway. The truck crashed into a line of 31 vehicles waiting to pass through the Lanzhou South Toll Station. The truck driver was slightly injured in the incident. He reportedly told police that he lost his brakes while going through a 17-kilometer-long downhill section of that highway. He is being detained while an investigation is underway.
Overseas now, voters in New Caledonia are deciding whether the French territory in the South Pacific should break free from France. Right now, exit polls suggest that voters want the status quo to remain. Polls opened this morning in a referendum that will help define New Caledonia's future as an independent country or as a continuing part of France. More than 174,000 registered voters were invited to answer the question, do you want New Caledonia to gain full sovereignty and become independent? Observers expect a majority to vote remaining a part of France based on opinion polls and previous election results.
If you want America's booming economy to continue, vote for Republicans. That's what President Donald Trump is touting as he competes with powerful Democrats for votes in Tuesday's midterm elections. President Trump arrived in Montana aboard Air Force One, packing a powerful message that if Americans want to keep their economy booming, vote for Republicans.
In the last month alone, we added another 250,000 jobs. Since Election Day, we've created 4.5 million new jobs. Think of that. The unemployment rate just fell to the lowest level in more than 50 years. More Americans are working today than ever before. Nearly 157 million Americans now have jobs.
Control of both houses of the U.S. Congress, currently dominated by Republicans, and 36 governors' offices will be at stake when Americans vote on Tuesday. Trump set off alarm bells warning the electorate not to vote for Democrats.
This election will decide whether we build on the extraordinary prosperity that we've achieved or whether we let the radical Democrats take control of Congress and take a giant wrecking ball to our economy and to the future of our nation.
Over in Ohio, former Vice President Joe Biden was campaigning hard for Democrats. Biden didn't mention Trump by name, but alluded he's not a moral leader, and only Democrats can reset America's moral compass.
As ordinary people can do extraordinary things, given a chance. That's who built this country. Ordinary people, just given half a chance. But to do it, we have to reset the moral compass of this nation.
Biden insists voting for Democrats will put the country back on track.
This is the most important off-year election that any one of you will have ever voted in. And that's not hyperbole. The very character of our country is on the ballot on Tuesday.
Meantime, survivors of the high school mass shooting in Florida are pressing the youth to vote only for anti-gun candidates to ensure safety in America's schools.
A lot of students from Stoneman Douglas, which is my high school, go here. They've done an incredible job along with different organizations to make sure that young people here are electing politicians that actually care about them.
Thousands of U.S. troops are now at the U.S. border with Mexico, putting up barriers to stop thousands of migrants from entering. In Mexico, the Central American migrants were seen catching rides aboard trucks or any mode of transportation they can find. After walking for 3 weeks, caravan organizers are pleading for buses to help get the migrants closer to the U.S. border. Right now, there are 3 different caravans, totaling more than 6,000 migrants, stretched over 500 kilometers of highways throughout Mexico. At the order of President Donald Trump, U.S. military troops say they're happy to support the Department of Homeland Security. Fresh media reports have suggested that Britain and the EU are on the verge of a customs deal which would allow the UK to ease its way out of the European Union. There have been fears in recent weeks that Britain and the EU would fail to strike any deal at all. The British media has been suggesting that a comprehensive deal between the UK and European Union is closer than previously thought, despite all the melodrama about friction between London and Brussels. The Sunday Times is reporting an all-UK customs deal will be written into the legally binding agreement governing Britain's withdrawal from the EU to avoid the need for an Irish backstop. This means the plan would avoid the need to treat the British province of Northern Ireland differently, which has been the main stumbling block to securing an agreement on Brexit. On Friday, Reuters reported the EU suggested that a backstop post-Brexit customs agreement covering all of the UK could give mainland Britain some scope to set trade rules while keeping Northern Ireland aligned with Europe. In an interview with the national broadcaster RTE, Ireland's Prime Minister highlighted how divisive the border issue is in finding a Brexit solution that will satisfy both Britain and Ireland. Leo Varadkar said Brexit is undermining Northern Ireland's hard-won peace by creating tensions between Catholic and Protestant communities. Still, Britain's Brexit Secretary seemed to hint that a deal was coming.
We're engaged in negotiations. I need to protect the integrity of those negotiations, but we're confident we can get a good deal, good for all corners of the United Kingdom and good for every community here in Northern Ireland.
British Prime Minister Theresa May's office has played down the reports as speculation. Still, May's cabinet is expected to meet on Tuesday to discuss the plan, and she hopes there will be enough progress by Friday for the EU to announce a special summit. Thousands of mourners attended the funeral of a prominent Pakistani cleric who was killed in a knife attack in his homes in the city of Rawalpindi. One of his sons led his father's funeral prayer in a town on Pakistan's border with Afghanistan. Maulana Samil Haq was killed on Friday. He was a revered teacher with influence over Pakistani militants and Afghanistan's Taliban. Many Taliban leaders and commanders studied a strict interpretation of Islam at his seminary, which earned him the title of the Father of the Taliban.
And still ahead in our newscast, the Environment Chief stresses the solid waste charging scheme is aimed at waste reduction at source and more recycling by the public. Police seize more than $10 million worth of the drug ice in Yuen Long. And in Thailand, the funeral for Leicester City Football Club's chairman.
歲月一到，你嘅計劃就會被偷走。申請匯豐交稅萬應前，無論上網抑或打24小時申請熱線都可以。等你輕鬆趕走歲月煩惱，無阻大計實現。已經嚟到你屋企，咁就快啲申請啦。借定唔借，還得到先好借。
And a warm welcome back to TVB News. The government is going to table a bill on municipal solid waste charging at the Legislative Council in the middle of the month. The Environment Chief has defended the charging scheme, saying it's aimed at encouraging the public to practice waste reduction at source and recycle more. Still, he admits the provision of some recycling facilities is lagging behind schedule, mainly due to difficulties in finding land to build them. Christy Lang reports.
Under the government's municipal solid waste charging scheme, households will have to buy designated garbage bags to dispose of their solid waste. A 3-person family using a 10 or 15-litre bag a day will have to pay $30 or $50 a month as the waste disposal charge. Speaking to TVB News, the Environment Chief stressed the scheme has to carry a financial incentive.
The overall policy is to create the cultural and behavioral change. So that people would say buy less, reduce waste at source, and also to do more clean recycling.
Wong said the waste disposal charge in Taipei was reduced in recent years due to the strong recycling sense in the community. He added that whether the proposed levy for Hong Kong will be adjusted in the near future depends on the recycling trend. Authorities say around 3,600 tons of food waste is produced locally every day, with 2/3 of it coming from households. Wong admitted that the provision of some recycling facilities, such as the plant food waste treatment plant, is lagging behind schedule, mainly due to difficulties in finding land to build them. He is an alternative to recycling the organic waste.
Our Environment and Conservation Fund sponsor estates to install the composting machines for food waste. Actually, the fund is available, but the response from the estates is not very positive because they don't have the push. Probably with the waste charging, that would provide substantial push.
The government expects the municipal solid waste charging scheme to go into operation at the end of 2020 at the earliest, depending on when the related bill is passed by the Legislative Council. Christy Leung, TVB News.
Some 2,000 local residents are currently on the organ transplant waiting lists. To meet the rising demand, the government will look into whether to simplify the donor registration process to encourage more donations. Kana Chu reports.
Things have not always been easy for this 4-year-old. At birth, she was diagnosed with a blocked bile duct. She was in urgent need of a new liver when her condition deteriorated 2 years ago. She later received a third of a liver from a living donor, her mother. According to the government, there are around 2,000 people in the city on the organ transplant waiting list. At the same time, there are some 290,000 sign-ups at the Central Organ Donation Register. To encourage more donors to come forward, the government will look into whether to simplify the registration process. This, as Undersecretary for Food and Health Choi Tak-ki noted voices claiming that the current registration and review processes may not be the most convenient. He advised members of the public to convey their wishes to their families after registering as organ donors. That will facilitate the approval process from family members when the registered donor passes away. Kana Chu, TVB News.
Police seized suspected meth, also commonly called ice, with a street value of more than $10 million in Yuen Long on Friday. 2 men were arrested in the operation. Following a tip-off, police searched a car wash shop on Taitung Road 2 days ago. 28 kilos of ice were found hidden in 2 hydraulic cylinders. Police say the cylinders are parts of machines usually used to lift heavy materials.
An elaborate funeral began on Saturday for Thai billionaire and Leicester City Football Club owner Mr. Vichai. He died in a helicopter crash in the UK a week ago. The royally sponsored funeral was held at a Bangkok temple. Attendees included top government officials, businessmen, and other public figures in Thailand. Club officials and several Leicester football players were also among the mourners. Funeral rituals for the billionaire will continue till November 9th. And from all of us, thanks for joining us.
A very good night. Bye-bye.